Now, Kevin, to kick this one to you, where do you think that Deshaun Watson is going to be traded to when it's all said and done?
To be honest with you, I think Seattle is the best fit. I think he will end up a Seahawk because Seattle just got all those picks for Russell. Seattle still has their own picks. Seattle still has some cap space issues that they need to resolve, so they may trade some players with some draft picks to kind of alleviate and make up for what it is that they're going to inherit with Watson's contract this season, if that ends up happening. But in terms of offensively, I think this is the best suited place because they have DK Metcalf, because they have Tyler Lockett and a couple of other not no name, but like lower tiered level receivers that just make the most sense. They have a strong run game. The only issue is obviously they are going to have to build up that offensive line, which is a big reason why Russell wanted out in the first place. So it's not like Deshaun's going to be doing anything different. He was running for his life for the most part, for the majority of his career in Houston. He's just going to be doing it again in a different conference across the country. So I think it makes the most sense. I mean, if you look at what Houston was asking for when these trade rumors started last year, they wanted anywhere upwards of 4 to 5 first round picks with personnel or pick swaps, if not all of that. So if you incorporate the 2 first rounders that Denver gave Seattle this week or last week, then you incorporate maybe 1 or 2 more, if not another first round pick and then a second or third, or maybe even both. You can accumulate 5 to 6 picks that aren't even necessarily yours to begin with because you got them for Russell. Use those assets, maybe throw in a pick or two of your own, and kind of bundle that up to throw towards Houston so that they can build for their future. Now, again, I'm not saying that Carolina is going to be ruled out of this, but I don't necessarily know what Carolina would have to offer outside of maybe Christian McCaffrey, which wouldn't make sense if you were bringing in an offensive weapon that would make McCaffrey better. But because I know that he's on the block because of injuries, and by he I mean Christian, we don't know what's going to happen. I know that Robbie Anderson wanted to potentially reunite and go back to the Jets, but again, we don't know what's going to happen. Do they link and put DJ Moore in there? Do they go out there and do they add a backup running back or a defensive lineman, or I don't know? Do they try to re-sign and trade Stephon Gilmore? I have no idea what's going to happen. The point of the matter is, what makes the most sense is Seattle because Seattle has the means to do it. But I would not rule out Carolina because they have been in the mix for him since last season. And I just think that it makes the most sense for him to go to one of those two. But if I had to put my bottom dollar on it, I think that Deshaun Watson will be a Seattle Seahawk.
Kevin, this is always a tricky one because, trying to just basically speculate just based off the rumors that we've seen, off the reports that from what I've seen, I could really kind of label it to 3 teams. Seattle's definitely one of them. I definitely got to throw Carolina in there. And then the third team that I would probably mention is probably the New Orleans Saints. And the one thing that all these teams have in common is that their quarterback position is either subpar or they're in a desperate situation to get somebody in the fold to upgrade that spot. And I think the point that you made about Seattle, I think is a good one because Seattle just traded Russell Wilson to the Denver Broncos last week. They have a clear space that they need to fill at that position. And when you look at Deshaun Watson, he's only 26 years old. He's the same age as us, Kevin. And no matter what sort of draft capital that you have to give up to get Deshaun Watson, I think Seattle has to make that move just because Deshaun Watson is an instant game changer no matter where he goes. And I think when you look at what Deshaun Watson could bring to Seattle, for example, I think that team could definitely be a playoff contending team if they make those offensive line adjustments in whether it's in free agency, whether it's in the trade market, whether it's in the NFL draft. Those are some things that they're going to have to address this offseason. I definitely think Seattle is in contention. I think New Orleans is going to make a huge pitch to get Deshaun Watson simply because Houston is trying to trade out of conference. Usually that's how these trades go. That usually because team that's trading someone away, they don't want to deal with the guy that they traded within conference for the foreseeable future. So I think they may look to the NFC South to possibly trade him, whether it's the Saints, because the Saints, granted, they do have Jameis Winston, but Jameis is coming off of an ACL tear. Things didn't necessarily go well with Taysom Hill when he started to get some burn at the quarterback spot. So things are kind of in flux in New Orleans, and I do think that bringing someone in like Deshaun Watson into the fold, I think it could re-energize that entire team now that Drew Brees is gone, now that Sean Payton is no longer there anymore. Deshaun Watson could definitely be that spark plug to make New Orleans relevant again, just because the Buccaneers have pretty much owned that division since Brady has started playing for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And then when you mention teams like Carolina, I think Carolina's kind of in a very similar situation that New Orleans is in. They brought in Sam Darnold last year, and Sam Darnold, I think he's a decent quarterback when he's in a decent system, but it hasn't really materialized in anything significant throughout the early parts of his career. It didn't work out in New York, didn't necessarily go his way in Carolina his first year. I don't know if things are going to improve if they try to retain him going into the second season, if he were to stay another season in Carolina. But you look at Deshaun, and Deshaun would be an immediate upgrade over Sam Darnold. And I really think that that RPO option that they can run with Christian McCaffrey and Deshaun Watson potentially, I think it would be a nightmare defensively for whatever team is going up against the Carolina Panthers if they were able to trade for Deshaun. Just, I think all in all, the Carolina one would be kind of interesting because Carolina has some pretty skilled wide receivers at their disposal. Robbie Anderson's really kind of the one to mention off the top of my head. But I think when it comes down to it, I think it's going to be one of those three teams. I think it's either going to be Seattle, I think it's going to be New Orleans, I think it's going to be Carolina. And if I had to pick one, just to kind of pick one, Kevin, I'm going to agree with you. I think it's Seattle because I think Seattle's in a sense of desperation because they traded away Russell Wilson. They need to bring someone in. And I think when you bring someone in like Deshaun Watson, I think it would be an instant energizer for that team and that fan base. That's not to discredit like him possibly going to Carolina or New Orleans. I just think that Seattle's in a desperate situation. And I think they'll do whatever it takes, no matter what the package is, as far as the draft capital goes, to send to Houston to get Deshaun Watson. That's just how I see it.